Let's record our songs and have more efficient and entertaining practice. It's time to nerd out on some computer gear. Metal Bass Monday. So in keeping with the theme of doing some digital work, which you'll see in my examination of Eddie Jackson's bass tone, which the revised version of that YouTube will actually let me upload, will be out tomorrow, so check back for that. And so that you don't miss that. And if you enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, share, hit that bell for the notifications so you know when that comes out, and for the rest of the stuff I've got coming up. Also, this week is going to start the basics of my ultimate songwriting and production tutorial series, and the first episode's going to be just for my patrons. That's going to be an expanded talk and probably the most important advice I've ever given out, and the best talk I think you're going to hear on the subject. If you'd like to get in on that, links down below to Patreon and Subscribestar. Check that stuff out, and it's definitely going to, I hope, fill in some great things about getting your career started and how to keep you on track and focused and make sure that you actually meet your goal. And speaking of my patrons, thank you all so much. I always appreciate the input and support. More live streams coming up now that seems to have been worked out a little bit as far as the bugs go, and I'll look forward to hearing more from you guys then. So, with everything about the channel and the updates wrapped up, let's get into it. So the biggest mistake I see with people when they first get into recording or getting some basic digital gear together to work is they get unfocused and spend way too much money. And if you're just getting into it, you don't have to spend a lot. You really don't, and you don't want to. I know, like with all our gear, there can be a real temptation to want to get the best and to go, again, how I constantly warn about the advice on forums. Everybody saying, well, this is the best, and you should buy this, or you should buy that. Don't. There are two things to keep in mind that are going to keep you from wasting a lot of money and buying things that aren't appropriate for you at the time. Number one is, we really have an embarrassment of riches right now. The lowest level stuff that we have for recording is pretty much on par with some of the gear used in some of the most classic albums of all time. So there isn't going to be a diminishment of quality by any standard, and I've heard incredible results with really minimal tools. The other thing to realize is that there's going to be a learning curve as you get into things. So as you learn to use these tools, by the time you've really mastered them and you're ready to take advantage of these incredible things that are current right now, they're probably going to be outdated by then. And you'll probably want to upgrade to something even newer, so the investment that you made early on won't have been taken advantage of, and you'll just have wasted money on it. So your emphasis really is to get the things that are going to be essential for you to be able to start building a solid base, accomplish all your goals, and be able to learn without a ton of outlay until you really know what you need and what you want as far as your home DAW system. This is really going to come down to your own personal preference and how you like to operate. A larger system is always going to have more options. You can put more drives in it. You have larger screen, all of these type of things. It's really my preference for working, but there are incredibly powerful laptops, and at the level that most people are getting in at, you really just don't have that much to worry about. There's plenty of power. You're not going to suddenly be, oh, my laptop doesn't carry or isn't able to do all the things I want. Really, if you're just getting in and up to a pretty high level, the average equipment can do what you need. So as you can see, like with the system I have behind me, I've got a couple of screens, I've got a touch screen going, and I've got a lot of stuff integrated. But I also have a mobile unit that I carry around the house or out to some other things that's just a Windows Surface with a USB audio interface. Just as well, up until a certain point of me really overloading it with tons of effects and virtual instruments and things, it feels and acts just like my main system does. So especially at the beginning, do either what you already have and incorporate that into your system, or do what seems like the best feel for you and what your lifestyle is. But either one, especially just getting into it and up to kind of intermediate level, both of them can work just fine. So let's start with our basic hardware, and that's going to be your interface. You have to have something to get your bass and any other things you want into the computer. Again, you don't have to spend a lot of money here. You have interfaces that, are fantastic and have incredible options. I can't tell you, though, how many times I've had somebody buy something that had all these features and everything, and then they came back to me a year later and were like, I never used this stuff. And then they wind up trying to sell it secondhand for something smaller and cheaper and trying to make some of the money back because, it seems like a good idea at the time, as most extravagant purchases do, and it didn't wind up helping. So I'm going to give you one example, but there's tons out there. I use one of these with my Windows Surface for mic inputs, for instrument inputs, multiple ins and outs, pads, phantom power, everything I might need. Just a USB plug on the back, and I can get a hold of these easily for $150 new. You can buy a decent interface if you're just recording bass and maybe one other instrument, less than $100, and they're gonna work perfectly fine. Don't let people sit here and, these snobs that want to get you to buy something that's the equivalent of a Studio Logic desk or something. It's ridiculous. If you're just basically doing, simple recordings and things, it's going to be just fine. Like I said, that one is more options than I need when I'm moving around. $150, and the preamps actually sound pretty good, especially for something from a company like Behringer. Doing this stuff, the main thing you want to do with reviews is look for stability. So you can tune out all the stuff about, hi-fi quality and how do they go against UA gear and things like that. You really want to concentrate on, are the drivers stable? Does it work reliably and pretty well with the software that you're looking at? Things like that. You just want reliability. And that's not going to be too hard to find. So do your best guess off of that, get some recommendations, don't spend a lot of money, and you'll be just fine with the average USB interface. And at the level of especially starting out, the minor differences in between them as far as sound quality, you're probably not going to notice right away. Now, the next step is obviously going to be software. I feel like there's an entry-level place for everybody to get started, and it's simple and you can expand from there. Rather than having a lot of choices out of hand, grab yourself a copy of Reaper. You can get it for free and use the unlimited trial version of it until you get your feet wet and really kind of get used to basic recording with digital gear. It's fairly simple to understand. Everybody uses this thing. There's tons of tutorials all over YouTube, and it's a quick and easy way to get in without having to spend money before you really kind of get your legs as far as how things function and what your preferences are and things like that. So as your main DAW, I feel like it's the can't miss option. It's got some pretty pro level editing and some decent things. So go grab a copy of Reaper, and that's where you want to get started. Don't let tons of effects packages tempt you. You're really not going to need them at this point. I know a lot of them seem like they can do these incredible things and shape your sound and everything, but by the time you really get to use them, again, they're either going to be outdated or it's just going to be too much. And I know so many people have tons and tons of effects that seem like they're a great idea at the time, but you just really don't wind up using them, or you rely on them too much. And they don't really learn the initial parts of just getting a good sound to begin with. So don't worry about it too much. Just use what's already included in whatever DAW or package you have. Now, as far as upgrading later, after you've spent some time on Reaper, that's kind of, your training wheels. You may want to stay there. It's a perfectly legitimate platform to record on. If you decide you want to expand, then just look at other, tutorials or things about different software and see what seems intuitive to you. As for myself, I landed on Studio One from PreSonus a number of years ago. It's my favorite of all the available DAWs. I've been using it for years. And to me, it's the most intuitive. Plus, it's really powerful. And one thing that I'm really kind of hard about is I don't like bloated software. When things come with massive amounts of information or gigs or things like that, it starts to just not interest me because I don't want it cluttering up my system. And two, the more that you kind of pack a bunch of garbage code into something, the more likely it is to glitch or have some kind of problem, or, there's a reason they call it bloatware. So I like Studio One because it's very streamlined. If you cut out all the virtual instruments and things, it's really a small install comparatively. And that's kind of one of my big things that I look for. So that's kind of my recommendation, but look around at the other ones and see which one fits the way you think and you function, or just stick with Reaper. But if you want to upscale, go to it after you've had some time and that you now have enough recording training to have some individual thoughts and choices. Now, the essential piece of add-on software that I would recommend is something for virtual drums. This is going to, one, I think, make your practicing and things way more interesting, and you're going to get a lot more out of it being able to have a virtual drummer that you can play with, and instead of just always practicing to a metronome. And also, you're going to become way more creative because you're interacting with beats and things. It's going to start drawing out your creativity, and you'll feel more inspired. And you'll tend to practice more when you have kind of a virtual partner to play along with or try new ideas or things like that. For me, there's a couple of different ones that are out there and are at good prices and everything. The simplest one and the one with the most options is probably going to be Easy Drummer from Toontrack. There's tons of groove packs full of MIDI files available and tons of different styles and different players that sound really good. And you can, arrange little songs, start piecing together your own song ideas and having, a place to start with that. So it takes some of the burden of the drum programming out of your hands. And the other is that it's not very expensive. And if you were going to go for something, I would probably put a little bit of your money there, is, reserve a little bit to get that program and maybe one good pack, one of the metal packs or something like that. And especially if it's around, like when I'm recording now, you're getting towards Black Friday, around the holidays, there's always tons of sales. So, not a ton of money, get the basic program, get a good metal pack for yourself. And that's pretty much going to set you up. And that expands, again, your recording of your songs, more interesting practicing, expanding your practicing into things you might not be able to do with a normal metronome, things like that, or hear different things like polyrhythms and stuff and learn to play over them. So it's going to expand what you're able to do really quickly. That's probably my main piece of software. I would say that's a must-have, especially for a bassist getting into digital recording and practice. Now, getting to the last piece, you have to have something to listen through. I know it may be tempting to go through the normal sound card on a computer, that kind of thing, for your audio, but you just got an interface. You need to get some kind of audio out. There's nothing wrong with starting with just headphones. Get yourself a decent set of headphones, and you can go right out of the interface and be able to play through that. That's probably going to serve you pretty well. If later on you want to be able to have a little bit more movement freedom, step back a little bit, or as your ears get better, then you can invest in a set of monitors. There are tons of them that are available at different expense levels, and as always, the technology just keeps getting better. I've got a set of JBL Mark III that I keep downstairs to go with my Windows Surface thing, sound perfectly good and usable. And I've got a set of the Kali LP8s behind me. Those sound great for a larger room. But you can get some pretty reasonable things. Again, just look for reliability and clarity. And the biggest thing is going to be get powered monitors, especially if you want mobility. That's pretty much the standard anymore, but there are still some that take power amps and things, and you're just going to get tangled up in having to buy more and more stuff. Make sure you get a decent set of powered monitors. JBL, M Audio, Kali, there's all these different companies that make really reasonably priced ones. So if you feel like headphones aren't an option for you or it's too restricting, you can get a decent pair, find a good sale or something, $200. So all in, you're only out a couple $100 for a decent digital setup. That's as far as you should have to go. Now, as far as getting your feet wet with this stuff, what I really recommend is sit down on YouTube and devote a day. Just one day. Sit down, maybe a Saturday, and mark out I want to do some easy drummer stuff, some things about Reaper, and just watch all the breakthrough videos of, introduction, beginner's guide, all this type of stuff, and go through and learn it, because there's a lot of stuff if you just kind of poke or blast away at it without knowing anything at first, you miss crucial little elements that later on you'll go, oh, this has been taking me all this time. If I just would have watched this one video or this beginner's course, I would have been able to knock it out and been way more ahead of the game. So that's really going to be kind of the completion of getting your whole package together and getting started. If you just follow this basic advice, grab those items, and then spend a day, I guarantee you'll be up and running and doing a lot of stuff that you probably didn't know you'd be able to do quite as quickly. So check all that out, spend a day doing it, go down the list of the items I gave you, and that's pretty much going to get you up and running with your songwriting, your song creating, and more advanced and interesting practice and creation. Hit me up down below and let me know, are you already getting your feet wet in this? Did you already go through a beginner stage, that kind of thing? What tools did you use? What worked for you and what didn't? I'd be really curious from people coming up maybe years after I got started or something, what tools might be out there that are becoming foundational that I might not know about. So let me know, and hit me up with any other questions or thoughts that you've had about getting your own setup together. What are you thinking about doing? Going monitors versus headphones? Stuff like that. So let's continue the conversation down below, and that's going to wrap it up for this Metal Bass Monday. Be sure to hit me back, and like I said, like, subscribe, and share. Keep this thing going, and since you'll be getting, of course, your new setup together, we'll be able to work together on the Eddie Jackson and some tone matching stuff, and that's going to be coming up here shortly too. So that's going to do it for this week. I'll see you at the next one.